Ladies and gentlemen, welcoming you all to International Affairs. This is being broadcasted from the SATV's Gulshan studio. My name is Shamsul Alam Pantho. As we have an excellent panel today, before we begin the discussion, let me introduce them all. In the studio, we have DU Professor Rashid Alam Bhuiya, who of course teaches and studies political sciences and frequently appearing on this program. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Alongside, we will have Norman Floyd Barnes, who is of course our geopolitical correspondent from Washington, District of Columbia. I welcome him onto the program as well. I want to begin with Norman. The US President Donald Trump has said he is extending his 2-week ceasefire indefinitely. This comes as Donald Trump is also making statements that the leadership in Iran need more time to come up to level-headedness. So at this moment, the world is grasping on to see what happens next. I want to get some updates from Norman Floyd Barnes. What do you think is coming to happen in the future days? Norman.
Good morning from Washington, D.C. It's Wednesday here. As you stated, the President of the United States has extended the ceasefire negotiation as Pakistan has been able to convince both parties to wait until Iran has put together a comprehensive proposal for the ending of this conflict. So we do not know how long that's going to take. He used the word indefinitely, so it may take some time. And in the meantime, we are still dealing with the Strait. The Strait is now we had, I believe, a second cargo ship tanker that was fired upon. We do not know is Iranian or whoever, but it was fired upon, and the ship is stopped in the Strait right now. So with that said, we are waiting to see exactly how this thing is going to pan out. I say we, the world is waiting. Cost of everything is rising. The cost of making clothes, the cost of petroleum, the cost of gasoline, the cost of doing business, and many people are losing their jobs because they do not have the rare resources necessary coming from that area to allow them to retain their employment. So right now we at this stand we're off this situation. We do not know what the talks is going to be. Today, like I said, is early in the morning. What is Washington plans? And the only thing I do know right now is basically Pakistan is working very diligently on trying to find a solution to this conflict. And at the same time, there's still talk about more aggression, more attacks in the Gulf region to the states. So this is bringing the Gulf states to a point where they are very unstable, very concerned about doing business, and they're looking at other alternatives of how we can do trade, commerce, and even the currency is looking at. The UAE is talking to the United States about looking at getting funds because they can't get their money to move the way they need to be. So right now we are still in the state of wait and see. Nothing has changed from yesterday. There's no talks. There's no additional attacks planned by the United States, even though they are staged. And Iran is stating that we are going to respond to any type of provocation by the United States. So right now we're looking at two parties, two countries looking at each other, stating that we are not backing down and we are ready to accelerate the situation to the next level if necessary.
Thanking Norman Floyd Barnes. Very important statements coming from you regarding the situation between the United States as well as Iran. Donald Trump took to his Truth Social platform in which he had said, I will quote for all our viewers, I have therefore directed our military to continue the blockade and in all other respects remain ready and able and will therefore extend the ceasefire until such time as their proposal is submitted. and discussions are concluded one way or the other. This is the comments made by US President Donald Trump. Coming back to the studio with Professor Rashid Alam. You are hearing Norman, and I have read you out the Donald Trump's post on Truth Social platform. Right now, there is some situations that are brewing. Pakistan is trying its level best to get back to the table with coming up with a unified proposal. However, even though J.D. Vance was ready to come to Islamabad as of yesterday, there was no such indication from Iran. And that is why it is still in a limbo. How would you value this issue?
Thank you so much for bringing me here again. So, the extension of ceasefire as expected, when the Islamabad negotiation was taking place, after that negotiation, we have come out of some of the report of that negotiation, and particularly from the Iranian side, Professor Marandi was saying actually, in the negotiation table, actually the ball is not in US court. It is dictated by somewhere else. So Iran is actually losing its interest, and Iran thinking that actually this peace negotiation and this talk actually, nothing but US unilateral imposition of conditionalities, which is equivalent to surrendering the Iranian sovereignty. And that is not possible for Iran, as Professor Marandi said. So for the Iranian side, there is not much interest left for this peace negotiation, because time and time the conditionalities has been imposed on Iran, particularly surrendering their nuclear enrichment programs, surrendering their missile capacity. This is not possible for any countries, for a sovereign nation. So and Iranians are united. We have seen in the street yesterday night as well, the militaries, they displaying their the missile capacities in the street, and also people are united in the street. They will not be able to surrender their sovereignty. They are united, and whatever attacks may come from the US side or Israel side, they are ready to retaliate, and they are ready to give their life. They are ready to become martyred. So that's the situation where Donald Trump has no other option rather than to extend this ceasefire. But ultimately, the political economy of this conflict is not good for anyone, and particularly the US citizens. Their cost of life, as Norman Floyd Barnes also saying that the cost of everything is increasing, and running this show, running this war is not a joke actually. So ultimately, people's cost of fuel, cost of life, cost of food, everything has been increasing. So I don't know how long Trump will gonna continues this kind of blockade. So Iran said this further US blockade is actually detrimental for the further peace talks, because so this is the condition actually. You cannot hope much, particularly in a situation like US further military blockade on the Suez, on the Hormuz, actually causing another conditionalities on this, another burden actually on this peace negotiation. So I can see this thing in that way, and ultimately the economic pain that Americans are experiencing, and the political pains that Donald Trump himself is facing, particularly in the Senate. Every week we have seen that there are bills coming in the Senate to stop this war. Right. And any kind of provocation need to be stopped. So Donald every days, every weeks, actually we are heading toward midterm elections. So Trump political pain is also increasing by this war. So he need actually exit point, but Iran is not going down. That's the problem.
Excellent statement coming from Professor Rashid Alam, and I will continue this discussion further on, that it's not just a blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. The US Marines have taken over the entire naval routes from around the globe to understand how to affect Iran in its shipping and trading routes. But before I discuss this, it's time to take a very short commercial break. Hello and welcome to International Affairs, and my name is Shamsul Alam Pantho.
I don't see an easy resolution to this, because every slight deviation from the plan,
opening an open war conflict with them,
testing nuclear missiles,
Russia's announcement of these supposedly successful testing,
special and exclusive footage that is being played on SATV screen.
really coming to terms with Hamas.
Damage estimated between this entire issue.
President Trump is expected to hold bilateral talks.
Preserving biodiversity and tackling climate change.
We cannot protect the planet before we negotiate peace.
Where is it going? Is it understanding the needs of its people before the needs of this global world?
For China to come to agreement,
They will face better projects.
With President Xi of China and President Lee of South Korea.
Trump's White House that is in favor of these things.
Simply not enough action being taken to address the problem of fossil fuels.
What their plan initially is towards the Caribbean, a place that has been met with two types of disasters.
Bangladeshi students at the same level of opportunity internationally and domestically.
International Affairs. Watch every Sunday to Thursday at 2 p.m. only on SATV and SATV Digital. Hello and welcome to International Affairs, and my name is Shamsul Alam Pantho.
I don't see an easy resolution to this because every slight deviation from the plan,
Opening an open war conflict with them.
Testing new.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back on International Affairs. In the studio, I am joined with Professor Rashad Alam Bhuiya, and across Zoom, I have Norman Floyd Burns, District of Columbia, Washington, all the way in the United States. I want to bring the next topic of discussion to everyone's attention. The U.S. Marines has boarded a large sanctioned crude oil carrier, the Tiffany, in the Indian Ocean, according to shipping tracking platforms Marine Traffic. Of course, this ship was seen loading 2 million barrels of crude oil at Iran's Kharg Island earlier this month. Later, the tanker has crossed into Southeast Asia, and at this moment, the vessel was supposed to enter China, but it was placed under U.S. sanctions as of last summer. So the Marines have targeted this crude oil carrier, which not only a couple of days ago was carrying Iranian oil into China. I want to ask Norman Floyd Burns, the international rules for the sea and how it is being violated because of the tensions between US and Iran. One of the conditions for the second round of talk was to lift the naval blockade the US military is now seen in. I want to get a vibe from you, a gist from you. How do you see this international piracy going on? And this time around, this specific case was in the Indian Ocean. Norman.
yes, you have just seen, you're mentioning the situation regarding the piracy, the seizing of ships, the tracking of assets emanating from Iran. In this case, we have oil reserves scheduled to be directed to China. So we are witnessing and seeing that the United States is now going global regarding the tracking, the monitoring, the seizure of assets from Iran. Is As this trend continue, we should expect a similar type of trend coming from Iran. What form we don't know, but the suspected form is that as we seize their assets going from their region to other regions, in this case China, South Asia, we can suspect that they will retaliate on the Gulf states in the region. One of the officials yesterday from Iran stated that none of the oil fields in that region will be operational. What that means, we don't actually know, but I suspect there will be a response, a decisive response that's going to affect the global economy. So what we are witnessing is now an escalation from this region. Is now going to the Indian Ocean. So we do not know, but I would not be surprised if Iran have a similar response to another part of our economy. other parts of the world. We don't know it's going to be the Western, that region or whatever, but the first stop will be more impact on the economic flow from the region. The Gulf states, I suspect, is going to feel a response from Iran regarding this. And right now, the oil is the big thing right now. The petrol, the oil has to flow around the world. And Iran feel like they have the power to implement a stoppage of that, the impact the rest of the world, to put pressure on the Gulf states to uh, talk to the United States and reason with them about dealing and closing this issue as soon as possible. Right now, we're looking at going into the summer. We have June. We have the FIFA World Cups coming up. Uh, Yesterday, there was an incident in Mexico, outside of Mexico City at the Pyramids, where there was a shooter, a mass shooter, who killed one person and injured 13 other people. This type of situation is not good. I suspect, like I say, the World Cup is coming up. This is a major global event. These things will bleed over to that, if not impacted that. I suspect there are plans to basically disrupt that, particularly with the United States, uh, Mexico, Canada, this type of situation, a response from that region as a result of what we're doing in the Middle East. So that is coming up. I see that we're gonna have more problems, not just in the Strait area, but I'm looking at globally. As we move towards seizing the assets from Iran, Iran will have an impact on our economy and the way we live and things that we are planning, and it will be on a global scale. So all of this is to put pressure on the United States to basically back off, relieve sanction, and to close this thing. But if we go on through the end of the month, I suspect there will be some type of global impact as a result of our actions in that region.
Right. Excellent statements from Norman Floyd Barnes, not only regarding the economic woes, but also how this war has affected almost every single person on this planet. Now, coming to the story, there is a live update that is happening. A container ship near the Strait of Hormuz was attacked by an Iranian gunship earlier today, according to UK Maritime Traffic Organization. And the gunboat belonging to Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps gave no warning before it fired upon the vessel, and it caused heavy damage to the bridge. This is very latest, probably 6 or 7 hours ago, as latest as that. But on the other side, we see a huge change. We see the strategic affairs expert, Mohammad Marandi, he's an Iranian expert on professor as well. He is saying that in order to sit down the two sides, this naval blockade of not only the strait but also the ports must be released. There is an economic connection to this issue. Of course, Iran and China do have great economic partnership, and at this moment it is very normal for a nation like China to pursue its military interest around the region, especially because we've seen for the last 3 or 4 months the United States trying to do the same. The comparison is scary, and any kind of situation may be a result in the coming days. How would you see the economic relationship deteriorating over time?
Thank you so much. As you said, like, earlier Trump requested Iran not to supply any more weapons for weapons to Iran. That is that came like last week actually, yeah. So but the relationship, the long-term partnership, Iran with China, we know everybody knows that, and although Trump is trying to stopping that, but actually China's major interest, China's economic interest, actually running on these countries. Actually, they have a good number of supplies of crude oil from Iran and other countries. So So I mean, and luckily Iran has a very good geopolitical advantage here. I know not only they have the access to seas, but they have the hugely connected with the countries in Middle Eastern countries and also the Kazakhstan, other countries. They have land borders across like more than 9 to 10 countries, which is a huge advantage. Even if you stop the supply through the sea route by this naval blockade, Iran can continue get that supply through the land border, and also they are very much, as you said, the food. They produce their 80% of their food, so they are not actually fully dependent on any other countries for their economic needs as well. So although they suffered huge damage due to Israel and US continuous attack in the last 2 months, but even though they are self-reliant nations, and as Professor Marandi said, the Iranian nations are more than united due to this war. Although Trump administration wanted a regime changes, but that doesn't happen. That is the biggest win for the Iran actually, and the communities, they are very much self-reliant, they are self-sacrificing. So Iran is somehow managing, even though these huge casualties, huge losses, huge infrastructural damages, that we haven't seen any more revolt in Iran in the last 2 months. We have seen more support for the Iranian government. That is the biggest strength Iran is having and Iran is generating from this conflict. So that is, I think, as Professor Marandi also stated that, as you said. So I think in this situation, as the World Cup is approaching and there are US midterm election, so we might see from this point war much. There could be a much more cooler situation from this war. But even though Donald Trump is unpredictable, we know that. So, but yeah, we can hope that the things might go to the control in the next few weeks, I think. Yeah.
Very importantly pointed out by Professor Rashid Alam. Some of the points you gave me is very important. The world is now looking forward to this World Cup. It's a very happening event, regardless of which country it is hosting on. I want to ask another pitch angle with Norman, because China is backing the diplomatic push to end the US and Iran conflict after this ceasefire is extended. The current situation is, of course, critical. These were the comments being made by the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhou Jiakun. Of course, he said that in Beijing. I want to ask, because China and Pakistan do have a very friendly relationship to one another, economic relationship as well, and Pakistan is not being able to bring the two sides to sit down in that nation. On the other side, there is some foreign diplomacy that is happening due to China, which cannot be ignored. The Taiwan president cancels his trip after African countries revoke flight permits. Of course, these African nations would include the Seychelles, the Mauritius, and the Madagascar. They revoked the Taiwan President Lai Ching-te's presidential trip due to some kind of diplomatic pressure from China. Another global avenue opening up just in the borders of Asia. I want to ask this to Norman. How do you see this coming in?
Yes, we're dealing with a great war. Basically, we're looking at a countries looking at how can they manipulate the trends that's going on. This conflict is one of a global nature, is affecting how we do trade and commerce. That is the issue. Bombs and missiles and drones is one thing. That's the physical part. But the more long-term issue is, how do we affect the economies? How do we change? How do we address issues necessary for the multipolar world to move forward? That is the issue. If Iran can affect that, they will change how the world does business. The global south is emerging. China is part of that. China is looking at enhancing their economy and have a global impact as an alternative solutions to what's going on. Energy is a big thing. Infrastructure development is a big thing. So everything is predicated on getting the free flow of resources coming from the region of the Middle East. That region has a strong impact on providing resources necessary for automation, technology, and everything else that comes from the Taiwan area. So Taiwan and China is big producers of business, the new business moving forward. So the issues that we're dealing with right now with the Strait has to be resolved or come to some type of understanding so the world can move forward. Right now, 20%, maybe more than that, of the world is basically on hold because we can't get our resources because this conflict between the United States and that region is causing economic chaos to the rest of the world. That is the issue, the economic impact, doing business on how do we get to the next level? How do we move forward? We got big events come up like the World Cup and other things, the World Cup, the FIFA World Cup, and other things planned. And we have to understand that energy is a big factor here. Countries need to get the resources to have energy. There will be major problems if companies and countries can't get the energy to do daily business. That is the shock wave that we're dealing with. That is Iran is basically using that situation as their own atomic bomb. How we control the matrix, the nature, how do we become relevant, how do we not be overlooked, and how can we have an impact on the future so our country, our region can prosper like the rest of the world. So that is what's going on. We're seeing a lot of shifting and plan, but it's politically, geopolitically, there's positions that's been moved every single day, every minute. Every action has a reaction. So everything is strategized, everything is planned, everything is calculated for the maximum impact, not a response from a missile attack or a ship attack. What effect really they have? The effect is basically income. Every day we're losing, 20% of the world's economy is stagnated by this conflict. Money is not being made. Every day that we go through this conflict, we're losing billions, trillions of potential income and people's livelihood in certain situations. They do not have an infrastructure to maintain and to tolerate this. They are dependent on getting this free flow of information. So that is the issue we're dealing with, a economic catastrophe, a tsunami of global impact because of this situation.
Right. I want to thank Norman Flood Barnes, a very excellent description of the events that are taking place. Of course, he had quoted Newton's third law of motion. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. We will see whether or not Iran's football team shall be playing in the FIFA World Cup being hosted in the United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to take another short commercial break. Do stay tuned. Hello and welcome to International Affairs, and my name is Shamsul Alam Pantho.
I don't see an easy resolution to this because every slight deviation from the plan,
opening an open war conflict with them,
testing nuclear missiles,
Russia's announcement of these supposedly successful testing,
special and exclusive footage that is being played on SATV screen,
Really coming to terms with Hamas.
Damage estimated between this entire issue.
President Trump is expected to hold bilateral talks,
preserving biodiversity and tackling climate change.
We cannot protect the planet before we negotiate peace.
Where is it going? Is it understanding the needs of its people before the needs of this global world?
For China to come to agreement.
They will face better projects.
with President Xi of China and President Lee of South Korea.
Trump's White House that is in favor of these things.
Simply not enough action being taken to address the problem of fossil fuels.
What their plan initially is towards the Caribbean, a place that has been met with two types of disasters.
Bangladeshi students at the same level of opportunity internationally and domestically.
International Affairs. Watch every Sunday to Thursday at 2 p.m. only on SATV and SATV Digital. Hello and welcome to International Affairs, and my name is Shamsul Alam Pantho.
I don't see an easy resolution to this because every slight deviation from the plan
Opening an open war conflict with them.
Testing nuclear missiles.
Russia's announcement of these supposedly successful testing.
Special and exclusive footage that is being played on SATV's screen.
Really coming to terms with Hamas.
Damage estimated between Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back on the last segment of International Affairs. Today we were joined by Norman Floyd Barnes, very important discussion topics from him. I thank him for his participation on the show. And coming back in the studio with Professor Rashid Alam, we were talking about a strategy in what we've seen in the last 55 days or so. Usually the remarks was that when the killing of the supreme leader happened in Iran, Iran retaliated.
Right.
It retaliated by a combined effort to wipe out all military bases, US military bases in the region.
Right.
And those were specifically in the nations of Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Kuwait, as well as the United Arab Emirates and Qatar. But attacking these infrastructure, the patience level of these countries, because we usually see a drone strike on these countries and them are using surface-to-air missiles to wipe out these drones. But when shall or if will there be a situation in which these Arab nations are then attacking Iran in retaliation to the last 50 days of damages, not only structural damages to the nation, economic damages as well, people not feeling safe in their own homes, and also such damages that include tourism not flowing in. How would you value this?
Thank you so much for bringing these important issues. As you said, like due to their military bases, US military bases in these countries, and also the radar installment, which provided the signals that defending the Iranian missiles. So that's why Iran has to attack these facilities as USA have in these countries. Right. And we can see there are lots of we see that there are lots of provocation from Israel, particularly making the conflict between the Iran and these Gulf countries imminent, because there are lots of possibilities. But until so far, the Gulf countries have their restraint, and that has to be done, because Iran is reportedly saying if you provided your spaces like the air and also the bases, then you must be attacked. So these countries are unable to stop USA to not allowing their spaces. The USA is continuously using their air spaces, their military bases to attack in Iran. So Iran have the legitimacy to attack those countries, and the stake is for these countries actually, because they have a huge foreign investment there, multi-structural businesses, lots of infrastructure there, and Iran is capable of penetrating those air defenses, and they can attack where they wanted to do, so which can actually cause severe damage for these Gulf countries. So Gulf countries may not be able to cope those attacks, particularly their citizens. Where Iran citizens are very resilient, they are willing to sacrifice.
And every now and then they're on the streets in support of the current government.
But you will not see that in the Gulf countries to supporting their government in this attack. But you will see, and in somehow if one of those attacks will take place in their desalination plant, everybody will die. Because in these summer days, you cannot sustain without water even a single day. So I think there is a huge, massive, insecurity threat for these Gulf countries if they directly came into confrontation of Iran, because Iran has the capacity to attack anywhere in these Gulf countries. The Iran asking their brothers, do not give your spaces, air spaces or military bases to US or Israel to attack us. Will not attack you. That is simple. So the Gulf countries has to have showing that kind of brotherhoodness, and then Iran will also, honor those conditions. Iran is not willing to attack those Muslim neighboring countries if they do not support.
If they're not supporting of the US military infrastructure. Very important, very short comment I want from you regarding football, regarding the World Cup. It is appearing on us, and of course, according to Gianni Infantino of the FIFA, even he is expecting to see Iran's football team preparing for the World Cup, which will be held in the United States as well as Canada and Mexico combined. Right. Just very short, on the sidelines, football, do you think it's important? Do you think, or do you believe, can it unite these two enemies that have been fighting for so long?
First of all, it's a global moment, global enjoyment. It's the biggest store. But if we are global in the situation of global conflict, particularly in the heart of global, particularly in the Middle Eastern, where we get the supply of all of the energies. So how on earth this show could be like that much of interesting for us? So first of all, we need to stop this war to happen this World Cup, which is a big event, world event, where we can see the countries come together and they play together, and that fosters some sort of solidarity, peace, and some sort of happiness among the nations. So as you said, there is now Iran has qualified for this World Cup as well, and there is Iran might not join in this World Cup, but still they haven't said that they were willing to participate, because globally there is a huge support for Iran in this conflict, because they are oppressed in this case. They are, Israel unilaterally provoked this war. They killed their supreme leaders of Iran and also the top political leaders and military leaders. So Iran is oppressed, and there is a huge support for globally for Iran. So Iran must also wanted to generate more support through sending their World Cup, and Mexico also gave signal that we are ready to host the Iranian matches. So we might see Iran will join in this World Cup, and this World Cup will take place. But before that, the world leaders particularly need to sit down and stop this conflict. I think earlier Macron said the US blockade is another madness. So I think the European leaders and the world leaders must sit down, and particularly China, because China's role is biggest here. Trump is supposed to come in China probably in May. Right. So in that time, I think it should be stopped. This war must be stopped. And the only obstacle in this war is Israel. Even though US citizen, US politician is willing to sacrifice, willing to stop this war, but the person behind who is instigating the war to continue is Netanyahu and the IDF, and also the Israeli Zionists. So I think they are the behind forces who want to continue around this show. But the world need that. The world doesn't need that.
Very important remarks from Professor Rashid Alam Bhuiya. I must thank you for your contribution and your valuable time, your thoughts and ideas being shared on this very platform. Thank you for joining us today. Also thanking Norman Floyd Barnes from Washington, D.C. for numerously joining us on various programs. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to finish on a fact here. Today is April the 22nd, and of course it is known as International Mother Earth Day. It was initiated by 1970 by US Senator Gaylord Nansen. It was originally created to tap into student activism and encourage environmental education. Of course, it led to the creation of the EPA, which is also known as the Environmental Protection Agency, and significant environmental legislation. With that being said, I'm Shamsul Alam Pantho, signing out on International Affairs.